So I'm going to go to a technical question, and we'll start with Mr. Jackson. I just had my house reappraised. I'm a West Side resident, and the value dropped, and I'm going to say only 18%. Familiar, however, that investment properties and oceanfront properties have dropped significantly more. So with reevaluation coming up, are you prepared to tell the voters that to stay revenue neutral, that a net increase will affect the year-round residents more than it will the investment homes, or do you see a different outcome?
No, I understand what you're coming at, and I understand, and I've been trying to educate every person in the county, not just voters, because even renters are going to face that. With the reevaluation, what's going to happen is you're going to have people that own oceanfront homes that are going to pay less, and people in Roanoke Island and Collington and Hatteras and Stumpy Point and East Lake are going to pay more, and that's going to be a burden to our local people, and I understand that, and that's hard, and people are having a hard time understanding that, but I'm trying to educate them so that they are prepared. I think if you have information, they can understand it a little bit better and deal with it. But so I am familiar with that exactly, and trying to educate people now, whether I'm elected or not. They need to know that. They need to understand what this reevaluation is going to do. It's going to be one of the biggest things that goes on in 2013, is educating the people on how we're going to get a revenue neutral, which is not going to be real convenient for the year-round residents.
All right, Sandy.
The revenue neutral rate, for those who don't know, is a rate that you set when you do revaluations that will allow you to collect the same amount you collected the year before. Before that revenue neutral rate is reset, we will have between $14.5 million and $15 million shortfall in the budget. In other words, what we could collect next year would leave about a 14% gap in the general fund budget. This isn't paper clips that we're talking about. I've heard some people say that they're going to cut taxes and they're not going to do this and they're not going to do that. They have to get real. $15 million is more than half the salaries in Dare County government. We have to be very careful how we approach it. I think we need to get the public in and have some public meetings and see what they want. Do they want to give up some services? Do they want to just suck it up a little bit and pay those extra taxes? What kind of financial position is that going to put some of them in? I think we also have to look at the other side of it and see what we can do to jumpstart our real estate market and perhaps come back in 3 or 4 years and do another reval. We can do those as frequently as we want. The only limitation is you must do them every 8 years. And so I think that we have to look at it from a lot of different standpoints, and we also at the same time have to recognize that we've got some problems inside the current budget that have to be corrected, such as the deputies, such as the nurses in the health department that are leaving and going to the hospital. We're losing money every time we have to retrain people, and so we've got to find some solutions for that.
10 seconds.
It's not going to be easy, and there's not going to be a solution that pleases everyone, but I think if you're honest and the public has some buy-in and they feel like they have a voice in some of the decision making, at least it's a little bit easier to swallow.
Okay, time. All right, Bob Mueller.
There is no easy answer to the revaluation question. I think there are some things we can do around the edges, if you will, the paper clips that Sandy was talking about. We need to increase our AMS fees. Our AMS fees right now are set to Medicare minimums. They are among the lowest in the county. We need to raise them to the customary and usual level that insurance companies pay. This could bring in as much as another $2 million in EMS fees. We need to look at privatization for our lawn care and maintenance, not just for our services, but for the Board of Education, see if there are savings there. And we need to look at consolidating services and consolidating our capital improvements plan with the Board of Education to make sure that we're getting the maximum bang for the bucks that we're giving both the Board of Education and we're spending ourselves. We also need to look to long term. We need to make sure that we maintain a strong tourism economy, that we deal with the challenges that face us so that our vacation economy recovers and the rental values of those properties which have declined start to come back up because they have strong rentals. It was interesting to me that about half the homes in the Outer Banks Home Builders Parade of Homes were located in Nags Head, in a community that just invested in infrastructure as part of a long-term planning process to make sure that they had a good vacation experience, to make sure that they had a beach. And I think Dare County needs to look hard, not at both protecting beaches, providing access, and the other long-term planning issues that I've mentioned, stormwater quality, wastewater quality, to make sure that we continue to drive that vacation tourism market, and we drive the values of those properties back up. So when we do the next revaluation, we see that spread back, the cost of government spread back onto those rental properties.
All right, Bob Woodard.
Russ, absolutely. I'm on the west side, as you. And it's critical, and this is a number one priority that the board, the sitting board's going to have to look at and face, and the county's facing that 1st of January 2013. You know, it's unfortunate that the county incurred a number of years of spending increases that certainly far outstrip the pace of inflation. And a slash and burn mentality may well do more harm than good, I think. And it's clear we need to continue to look for ways to keep our budgets with zero increases, and we need to have these conversations with you folks out there and our business owners, our community leaders, and to see what priorities they have. I mean, after all, folks, it's your penny, it's your dollar, and that the county receives, and you need to be involved in how they spend it, and that's certainly what I'll push extremely hard for with the groups and the forums that I talked about. It's very, very important that we all step up to the plate as citizens. And again, I'm boring you with that civic rent, but it's your responsibility to help be a part of the solution rather than the problem. And we need to rein in on needs versus wants. And I will ask the citizens and the business leaders of the county to help us work towards a solution.
Warren Judge?
Yes, I am prepared. In 2005, we set a county policy that we're going to revalue every 5 years. In 2010, we delayed that, and we delayed that because the ocean front plummeted at a much quicker pace and a deeper cut than West Side, where we live, Roanoke Island, where we lived. And we knew that there was going to be a significant tax increase just on the reval process for those of us that live here. We delayed it a year. Then we delayed it. Then we delayed again, and we delayed it to the maximum 8 years to 2013. That has paid off. The tax bills that you'll be getting in next year, based on the revenue neutral rate, will be they're not going to be pleasant for some people, but they're going to be less unpleasant than they would have been, because that gap has begun to close between oceanfront devaluation and the rest of the county. I thank Sandy for explaining revenue neutral. Revenue neutral is such a misnomer. It's not revenue neutral to me when I write my property tax check at home. It's revenue neutral to the tax collector at Dare County. So that new rate that you're going to see, that we have to publish to explain to you the rate that will be required based on the new value of property to generate the same amount. The 49% of our budget, just under $50 million, comes from property tax. It's just the way it is. It's a reproportionate of the tax. It's a reproportion of the tax burden. I certainly hope that as we get to the final day when we have to set it, that gap closes more and more and more. I've done some penciling here and on different houses. You know, some people will pay a little bit more some people pay a little bit less. You're looking at generalization. You're looking at about a 38%
Okay, time.
countywide average devaluation in the property value of your house now. Now, you go home tonight and look at it, it may not wind up that way in January, but that's the county average.
All right, Alan Burris.
Yeah, when you look at revenue neutral, you begin to understand that there's, some people have been paying a lot more that live on the other side that stay here all the time. I mean, their valuation of their property is going to be less. Those of us that stay on the west side, our valuation is going to be less too. But when you look at what we have to raise it, it means that we're going to pay a little more on the property that we have. It shouldn't be, hopefully, all that much, but it'll be some. The detriment of not doing that is not just looking at what our wants and our wishes, and I understand that. We do that all the time, and he's right about that. But when you start talking about cutting half the county's salaries, you're talking about a third of the teachers. You're talking about your EMTs, your deputies, and all that. You can't run a tourism-based economy that we're looking at right now on a whole lot less than what you got with deputies, EMTs, and all those type of areas. And the other, I mean, you're looking at schools, you're looking at the deputy, sheriff's department. Then our matches go down to where you're looking at the Parks and Rec, and you're looking at those are the big areas that get hit. And then you look at an EMT type situation, the health department, the social service department, you do put some money in there, but for every $50 or so you put in there, you get 50 or 100 back from the state. So that is almost a grant type situation in a lot of those areas, and you're mandated on those others that you don't do it. So you're caught on those, and there's not a whole lot. I'm not saying you couldn't save some, but you can't save the type of money we're talking about in those areas. So what you're looking at is a substantial change in what we do if we don't look at that hard. As far as the public being involved, of course we'll have the public involved. That is something that Ms. Seaman is beating all of our heads. I don't think there's any way around doing that.
All right, time. And Kevin Connor.
You know, I always like political words like revenue neutral. I mean, the government may get the same amount of money as it did the year before, but that doesn't mean less money out of your pocketbook. The resulting tax increase that could very well come to Dare County residents in January of 2013 could well push those Dare County residents teetering on the edge into financial crisis. That is just, in my opinion, morally reprehensible. There are some people that are teetering on the edge that very well may lose their homes because of taxation. This is a situation that is unacceptable, in my opinion. You know, since 2008, we've got, the average family has lost 40% of their household wealth since the financial crisis. Then on top of that, we're going to add more taxes, you know. Where is it all going to end? When are we going to start implementing policies that start cutting spending? That's where the problem lies. We need to start cutting spending. We are required to live within our means. Why don't we require government to live within it? It's just, you know, we need to just find a way in which that we can cut through privatization. I'm a strong advocate of privatizing non-essential government services, such as sanitation, such as wastewater treatment, such as buildings and grounds maintenance. No one in this room can tell me, with the overabundance of landscaping contractors, electrical contractors, building contractors, and the like, that we can't find third-party sources that can do this a heck of a lot cheaper than the county government can do. The same way with sanitation. I've talked to several companies, Waste Industries, Republic Services. We've got municipalities up and down the coast of North Carolina, Wilmington, Greenville. Currituck County does it in its entirety. They save money. They worked with Waste Industries so that those employees wouldn't lose their jobs, so they would be transitioned out from under the county umbrella into the private umbrella.
Okay, time.
And we need to do the same.
All right, now we're going to do a 1-minute rebuttal, and we'll start back down with Alfred Jackson.
one thing that I got to say is, yes, I'm prepared to tell the people, because in my travels, I see the county employees, I see the tax reevaluation people out, and I feel confident that they have done the best that they can do. They've been house to house. They've done their homework. This is not an easy job for them, but I feel comfortable that they have done what is best for the county in trying to get an equal rate and trying to be fair. They didn't just sit on a computer and say, oh, this is what it's going to be. They went and visited the properties to see where it was. They talked to people to find out what that is. And I feel comfortable knowing that we have this employees in the county that have done correct, that I can relay that information to the public. The county created a video to help people understand what the reevaluation was. They have done stuff. We just have to get that out so that the people understand what is going on.
All right, Sandy?
One of the things that we have to be very careful of is it goes back to unintended consequences. Privatization sounds wonderful, but we're in Dare County, North Carolina. We're on the edge of the earth. Our businesses here are not competitive because they're not large enough. And we have to be very careful when we start laying off employees so that we can privatize, because we're adding to the problem. We're adding to unemployment, we're adding to social services, we may be adding to foreclosures, and this is something that's going to have to be looked at very carefully before we can take any kind of moves like that. It's very easy to sit back and make these blanket statements, but until you have the entire thing in front of you and you can weigh this all out, it's almost irresponsible to try to make decisions like that.
All right, Bob Mueller.
What if I told you that there was a bill coming to your house next year that was going to dwarf your tax bill? The increase was going to dwarf your tax bill. Would you be surprised? There's a 30% increase in your homeowner's insurance policy. My homeowner's insurance policy is about twice my property taxes. I don't know about other folks, but that's the general thing. Now imagine a 30% increase in that. We need to be careful with our budget. We need to make sure that we keep the revaluation impact to the minimum that we can. But it's not the only fight out there. Imagine Dare County without property taxes. Imagine what that does to the vacation rental economy. Imagine what that does to the construction and real estate economy. There are battles. There is revaluation. There's an important battle, but there are other important long-term battles out there, and insurance is one that's coming at us, and it's going to come at us with an impact that's well beyond, could very well be beyond what the revaluation is.
Bob Woodard.
Yes, Russ, I'm prepared, and I think I said it earlier, to talk about that revenue neutral with our citizens. However, my top priority is going to be to try to stop the tax increases. You know, I believe in zero increases will give certainly the citizens of Dare County that are thinking about leaving the area, it'll give them some hope. The real estate industry, realtors will be able to tell those that are looking to purchase property in Dare County that the county elected officials are serious about holding the line on taxes. I certainly believe that'll help property values as well as sell property. And let's empower our county employees to have a say-so with what should be cut. Give them a target and let them make suggestions.
Okay, time. All right, Warren Judge.
Don't let people scare you with the word reval. Let's wait till we get our tax bills. We see the figures as by towns and by county as whole and as average. And there are things that are less worrisome than we thought at one time. So let's wait till each of us gets our individual tax bill, or at least in January when you hear what the rate is and you can begin to calculate it. Secondly, we do live within our means. Dare County and the 6 towns are the local governments are the only governments in this nation that are required to balance their budget. They're the only governments. Everybody else can print money, can borrow, they can deficit spend, but we cannot. So we do live within our means. Don't let sound bites scare you into thinking that something is wrong with the county. Anyway, we shouldn't talk about tax rate. We should talk about level of service that we want to pay for.
All right.
Once you do that,
Time.
it gives you your tax rate.
Alan Burris.
The more you look at neutral revenue, you have to understand that it is, again, going to cost some a little more and some a little less. And that's just the way it is. Every time you redo things, that tends to be what takes place. You have to realize that we don't have anywhere near the information we'll have in January. So to make, I think to make decisions or make rash remarks here is doing you a disservice. It really is. We don't know if it's going to come in at 30%, 25%. All makes a huge difference. How we look at what goes on in those areas, we don't know. And those conversations will have to be held, and I'll guarantee you whoever's sitting on the board will have decisions to make. And those decisions will be involved.
10
and
seconds.
There's not something we've hid. But the sky's not falling, guys. The sky's not falling. It is an opportunity to continue to grow.
All right, time. And Kevin Connor.
I'd just like to go back to something Ms. Seaman said earlier about just because we're here on the coast and, you know, we're away from everything else. I don't necessarily agree with that observation that we can't embrace privatization. Time and time again, the market has proven that services can be provided better by the private sector than government. I mean, what business is it of county government to be in the business of sanitation pickup? I mean, just ask yourself, is that an essential service for government? Is picking weeds out of the flower bed an essential service of government? Couldn't we find a landscaping contractor who can do it a lot more efficiently and cost effectively? These are questions that we need to ask ourselves because these are your dollars that are being spent. Do you want them
10
being
seconds.
spent on services such as that, or do you want them being spent on something that's practical, that is something that's a necessary expenditure of government?
All right.